The history of Spain dates to contact the pre-Roman peoples of the Mediterranean coast of the Iberian Peninsula, made with the Greeks and Phoenicians, and the first writing systems known as Paleo-Hispanic scripts were developed. During classical antiquity, the peninsula was the site of multiple successive colonizations of Greeks, Carthaginians, and Romans. Native peoples of the peninsula, such as the Tartessos people, intermingled with the colonizers to create a uniquely Iberian culture. The Romans referred to the entire peninsula as Hispania, from where the modern name of Spain originates. The region was divided up, at various times, into different Roman provinces. As was the rest of the Western Roman Empire, Spain was subject to the numerous invasions of Germanic tribes during the 4th and 5th centuries AD, resulting in the loss of Roman rule and the establishment of Germanic kingdoms, most notably the Visigoths and the Suebi, marking the beginning of the Middle Ages in Spain. Various Germanic kingdoms were established on the Iberian Peninsula in the early 5th century AD. In the wake of the fall of Roman control, Germanic control lasted about 200 years, until the Umayyad conquest of Hispania began in 711 and marked the introduction of Islam to the Iberian Peninsula. The region became known as Al-Andalus, and excepting for the small kingdom of Asturias, a Christian rump state in the north of Iberia, the region remained under the control of Muslim lead states for much of the early Middle Ages, a period known as the Islamic Golden Age. By the time of the High Middle Ages, Christians from the north gradually expanded their control over Iberia, a period known as the Reconquista. As they expanded southward, a number of Christian kingdoms were formed, including the Kingdom of Navarre, a Basque kingdom centered on the city of Pamplona, the Kingdom of Leon in the northwest, originally an offshoot of, and later supplanting, the Kingdom of Asturias, the Kingdom of Castile in central Iberia, and the Kingdom of Aragon in Catalonia and surrounding areas of eastern Iberia. The history of these kingdoms and other are intertwined, and they eventually consolidated into two roughly equivalent polities, the Crown of Castile and the Crown of Aragon, roughly occupying the central and eastern thirds of the Iberian Peninsula respectively. During this period, the southwestern portion of the peninsula developed into the Kingdom of Portugal and developed its own distinct national identity, separate from that of the early modern period is generally dated from the union of the crowns of Castile and Aragon, under the Catholic monarchs, Isabella I of Castile and Ferdinand II of Aragon in 1469. This marked what is historiographically considered the foundation of unified Spain. Although technically Castile and Aragon continued to maintain independent institutions for several centuries, the conquest of Granada and the first voyage of Columbus, both in 1492, made that year a critical inflection point in Spanish history. The victory over Granada marked the official end of the Reconquista, as it was the last Muslim-ruled kingdom in Iberia, and the voyages of the various explorers and conquistadors of Spain during the subsequent decades helped establish a Spanish colonial empire, which was among the largest the world had ever seen. King Carlos I, grandson of Ferdinand and Isabella through their daughter Joanna, established the Spanish Habsburg dynasty. It was under the rule of his son Philip II of Spain that the Spanish Golden Age flourished. The Spanish Empire reached its territorial and economic peak, and his palace at El Escorial became the center of artistic flourishing. However, Philip's rule also saw the calamitous destruction of the Spanish Armada, coupled with financial mismanagement, that led to numerous state bankruptcies and independence of the northern Netherlands, which marked the beginning of the slow decline of Spanish influence in Europe. Spain's power was further tested by their participation in the 80 Years' War, whereby they tried and failed to recapture the newly independent Dutch Republic, and the 30 Years' War, which resulted in continued decline of Habsburg power in favor of French Bourbon dynasty. Matters came to a head during the reign of Charles II of Spain, whose mental incapacity and inability to father children left the future of Spain in doubt. Upon his death, the War of the Spanish Succession, broke out between the French Bourbons and the Austrian Habsburgs over the right to succeed Charles II. The Bourbons prevailed, resulting in the ascension of Philip V of Spain. Though himself a French prince, Philip quickly established himself as his own person, taking Spain into the various wars to recapture the Spanish-controlled lands in southern Italy recently lost. Spain's apparent resurgence was cut short by losses during the Napoleonic era, when Napoleon placed his own brother, Joseph Bonaparte, as King of Spain, turning it into a French puppet state. Concurrent with, and following, the Napoleonic period, the Spanish-American Wars of Independence resulted in the loss of most of Spain's territory in the Americas. During the re-establishment of the Bourbon rule in Spain, constitutional monarchy was introduced in 1813. As with much of Europe, Spain's history during the 19th century was tumultuous and featured alternating periods of republican, liberal, and monarchical. The 20th century began for Spain in foreign and domestic turmoil. The Spanish-American War led to losses of Spanish colonial possessions and a series of military dictatorships, first under Miguel Primo de Rivera and secondly under Damaso Berenguer. During Berenguer's dictatorship, the king, Alfonso XIII, was deposed, and a new republican government was formed. Ultimately, the political disorder within Spain led to a coup by the military, which led to the Spanish Civil War, in which the Republican forces squared off against the Nationalists. After much foreign intervention on both sides, the Nationalists emerged victorious, thanks to the help provided by Nazi Germany and Italy, their leader Francisco Franco, who led a fascist dictatorship for almost 4 decades. Francisco's death ushered in a return of the monarchy King Juan Carlos I, which saw a liberalization of Spanish society and a re-engagement with the international community. After the oppressive and isolated years under Franco, a new liberal constitution was established in 1978. Spain entered the European Economic Community in 1986, transformed into the European Union with the Maastricht Treaty of 1992, and the Eurozone in 1998. Juan Carlos abdicated in 2014 and was succeeded by his son Felipe V, the current